Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So what's happened in this case is I got a chance to watch the clip between the features and Angry Man. And I had to state that I disagreed with Angry Man or really anybody mentioning just pearly things. I definitely disagreed with Obsidian defending her. Crimson Cure had her number. As Crimson Cure said from the beginning, don't even expect anything from her. She's a white woman being a white woman. And as I have stated, racism does not require hatred. White supremacy does not require hatred. They don't even require anger. They are defaults of the current world system. Therefore, this makes sense to me. Now, if Angry Man was saying something about specifically her comments on roots, then he would not have agreed with her saying that slavery itself was embellished. Well, then that makes sense, at least, because he probably did not watch her that often. A lot of brothers didn't. Maybe British brothers did, but a lot of Yankee brothers did not listen to her. I didn't listen to her religiously. The clips would have to come across my feed based on algorithms, and that's the way I would see, or somebody would send a clip or something. I wouldn't go and look at her channel on my own. But Angry Man, I still disagreed with us paying her attention at all. We should have actually been very quick to dismiss her. I mean, imagine if she had been a light-skinned black woman, or worse, a light-skinned black man, and she said these things. Well, the dismissal, while it would have been, people would have been tensed up and incensed and angry, but, people would have been dismissive to him, like, yeah, see, that eventually came out. Like it was just some dormant white supremacist sentiment just waiting to rear its ugly head just because you're light-skinned. People actually acted kind of disappointed when she said what she said. I disagreed with that. I even heard BGS and Edward Allen Anderson saying, why even mention her? Just ignore her. Like, yeah, okay, we figured you'd say something like that. Not surprising. But some on the panel said that Angry Man threw black women under the bus. No, he didn't. Even when he said that he does not mess with black women anymore, that's not throwing black women under the bus. See, when black women say that they're not going to mess with black men anymore, we tend to say, well, she's free to go where she wants and be with whom she wants. But, black man says, I don't mess with black women anymore, and we have a better right to say that than they do about us in the West. Then we consider that throwing black women under the bus. Features, I'm sorry, but black men and black women in the United States, probably Canada too, but certainly the US and the UK, and even in the Anglophone Caribbean, are involved in a gender war. Absolutely so. And the Muslimas or the Muslimat are not even standing aside and saying, regarding this feminism, that's not what Allah ordered, and that's not what his messenger conveyed to us. Instead, they're looking and saying, we got rights. They do. They're saying the right thing for the wrong reasons. See, it's like this. Here's how I could explain it, Bilal. You know how when you and I stand up to non-black Arabs for their anti-black attitudes, or even without hatred, but these anti-black assumptions they might have, what do? They start saying, well, Bilal was black, khalas, and we're all slaves of Allah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in his last sermon that no one is better than the other except in piety. They'll say the right thing. How's it going, sir? They'll say the right thing, but they'll say it for the wrong reason. Well, that's what the Muslimat are saying when they go, we got rights. They're saying the right thing for the wrong reason. No responsibilities, but they got rights. What? As soon as you talk about your rights, then you're a misogynist patriarch. Why would we even consider not fighting back in this war? They chose that. We didn't. You and I know, as heterosexual black men, there's no way we would have chosen a gender war with black women. We also know that well, they weren't going to allow us to not have one. And so, with that being said, we don't like the fact that we're in a gender war with them, but we are. We don't want to be in a gender war with them. We're straight, we're hetero, but we are because they chose it. And the information and the lessons that many of us have had to learn from this gender war, and it is a gender war. It is not even just a battle between the sexes. It's a gender war. But we've had to learn some very harsh lessons from this, beloved. Anger Man was right about that. He absolutely was. He would actually be foolish if he said that he was going to continue messing with sisters. See, we're witnessing now that sisters can have what they want and they can have who they want. Well, I take that back. We're witnessing that they can be content with what they have and with who they have and who they find, so long as it's not with one of us. We keep on seeing this play out. That's real. It's never ending. It is the same preference that they keep showing. I mean, I'm witnessing this myself. I have witnessed this myself for the last 30 years. We're seeing where sisters will admit to some of the games that they play. And as they admit to these games that they play, they're admitting now on social media. And as they admit to playing these games on social media, the funny thing about it is that they get very, very irate when brothers, for whatever reason, start to notice them and start to put others up on game and tell anybody what they're witnessing. It bothers them to no end, like, how dare you sit up here and tell us? How dare you sit up and tell these other men the games that we would play if we could get away with it? You just ruined it for us. That's how they talk. They speak in those terms. Like we're wrong because we'll tell a young brother the games that some of these ladies are playing. We got men right now who believe that you're a weirdo if you think that it's wrong for an older woman at a school to make advances on a younger male student. That's what we're dealing with below. So if they think that that's what's going on and that's how we got guys thinking this way, this means that to a certain extent they've already been sexually colonized. They feel like they feel like they are of no value, like they're of a negative value right off the bat. Their value is negative by default. That's how these men have been convinced. It's okay when the guy's younger and he's just being used because he's just getting something for free. That means they don't understand game. They don't understand that it's never free. Well, you and I agree. Isn't anybody coming to the defense of just pearly things? Because Sarah Garvey brought receipts. And even Sarah Garvey has had some things to say about our faith. I mean, he pretty much said that the reason why Fresh, off of Fresh and Fit, Myron Gaines, did what he did and said what he said is because he's from a Sudanese Muslim background. So he actually sat up and blamed his nationality and our religion for why this guy made these comments and why he trolled our people, making monkey noises while wearing a Ku Klux Klan suit. He blamed our faithful, like just because they have some Arab blood and they might have some admixture and differing complexions and differing textures of hair, and they're not from the western coast of Africa, that they're just these high yellow, light bright, damn near white sellouts. That's how he interprets it. And I think Sarah believes that. I mean, there's a type of paranoia that is shifted. There was a time when in the UK, they would not have gone for that notion. They would not have just readily bought into this idea that if you're of one of those complexions that you're just naturally a sellout. They would not have started off thinking that way. But now what's happened is that they have started off thinking this way. Like even in other countries, other black folks, they're now beginning to judge somebody's consciousness and potential race loyalty and therefore sense of morality by their complexions. This is happening. This is not something that started with black men, though. If I'm going to be honest about it, this did not start with us. If I'm going to be honest about it, brutally honest about it, this wasn't us. For me to be brutally honest about this, I'll have to say what it is. This wasn't us. We didn't start this idea. This idea came about because of no-tep slow steps that just got these. They just came up sort of jumping up with different ideas out of their rear ends and pretty much theorizing that you could determine you could determine our attitudes and our race loyalty by counting our melanin. I wish I could make that up. But I mean, that's really what quite a few have thought. And this is not something, when I say us, I mean, it didn't start with brothers. It started oftentimes with moms, single moms in the hood. That's actually where this got started. If we're going to be honest about it, where this really began, there it is. It started there. Sisters made their minds up that because they were, and because there was such a thing as a class and color line, what they did was they made their minds up and said, well, it's always like this. It's never any other way. They just started making these assumptions. And to them, these assumptions became fact. And they became, without exception, it was going to always be the case. You know how our people talk. We'll say something and we'll say, always, always. Or other times we'll say, never. We tend to talk as if there are no exceptions. And they taught this to their kids, their daughters, and their sons. I'm not going to sit up and say that this type of colorism that we know and with which we struggle and from which we make a bunch of assumptions came from the men. Growing up in Black America, I know it was not allowed. We weren't allowed to be that. We weren't allowed to pass on these ideas. We weren't allowed. You could have them, but you couldn't pass them on. You wouldn't be allowed to pass on ideas like these to your kids. Two guys I knew who expressed colorist preferences. I mean, specifically, a preference for lighter skinned women over darker skinned women. Did not really have a problem with darker skinned women. Their mothers did. Both of them. And they actually grew up in houses with their dads. And their dads were not as pale as they were, or as the mothers were. This is what we faced. And so, now we don't have the option of just staying with sisters and being loyal to sisters. And it's not an option. It's not allowed. And so, therefore, we have to be harsh to them. Assalamu alaikum. We have to be rough and mean to them. We have to say certain things that they're not going to like and approve. And as a matter of fact, you can't really be thought of as being honest unless they disapprove of what you're saying. And it's war. I wish it wasn't. But independently of what I wish, it's war. They're actively selecting to sexually reward and reproductively reward only the degenerates amongst us, only the savages. And they'll tell you. They justify with all kinds of things to try to make non-savages, non-stereotypes feel bad about ourselves. And before they were doing this, to most brothers just for not being stereotypes. I was one of the few in my city to whom they were playing a lot of these games. All honesty, none of these games that they're playing are new. I was just one of the first ones to see it. In my particular generation, I think you and I are close in age, but growing up on the Gulf Coast, I saw it early on because I was allowed to see it early because they were doing this in my case to not only me, but to very few. There were a few other guys I knew that to whom they were doing these things, but very few other guys. It wasn't that common as far as we could make out. It's hard to gauge, especially compared to today, because back then you had more social media, you had less social media, and so they weren't talking about these things as publicly as what they are now. But now they're confessing to a lot of these things on social media. They're confessing to the games. They're confessing to being bored easily. They're confessing to a disdain for not so much. They're not really confessing to a disdain for degenerates. They're confessing to a disdain for brothers that are not. And what they'll do is sometimes they'll try to make themselves seem innocent. They say all manner of things. They'll say things like, well, we can't help it. And it's how we are as women, and we feel safe with them and we don't feel safe with you. But that's only because they insist on being in environments in which you are only safe if you're an N-word. That's the other reason. And they're lying. They're gaslighting. So in all honesty, there is no more community between us. Kevin Sam is one of the black families that stay together. That's the one thing with which I agreed with him emotionally, but had to disagree with him intellectually. It's already done with. And I'm saying this as a man married to a black woman, but I'm married to a non-Western black woman. She grew up part of her childhood in the West, and she got sick of it. And so therefore, we're compatible. And at times I have to remind her, and she's a good woman, but there are things of which I have to remind her. So the black Western family's over. Now the black family, and Angry Man, and mind you, I'm not one of his fans or detractors. I'm really neutral about who he is and how he is for the most part. I haven't listened to him in years. He was one of the first I heard talk about what about men's rights, but Angry Man, in all honesty, I haven't listened to in some years. I haven't gone to his channel. His shorts come up on my feed and I'll listen to those. And they're funny as all get out. That's Angry Man. What I'm going to say in his defense is that Angry Man does not say leave alone all black women on account of race. He says he's talking about the Western sisters. He doesn't even like white women. I don't. Now, I'll tell brothers, yes, go ahead and leave them bide witches alone, because even you have to understand that it's not the same. They may treat you better, but in the end, they're probably still going to come out worse. And even then, there's another thing at play too. I've had to tell them this. I've had to tell them in the end, there's still something else that happens. And that is that even when you get one that's not racist, their in-laws don't F around, and they're not leaving their families. They're not leaving their inheritance. They don't have to hate you. They need that inheritance. I get that. I've explained this to them. I've explained this to brothers. Angry Man has kind of said something similar to brothers. But sisters, you just can't win with them. And the Muslimat are following the feminist. I just saw yesterday where one non-Muslimah, as far as I know, was sitting up saying these jailed, she said something about these jail dudes be looking better. They got y'all beat for real. You know, no capitalization, no punctuation, all kinds of initials and acronyms, misspellings, that sort of thing. But there was a munakaba, and I'm going to give her name. Kendra Laurel. She had a niqab on, and she said facts. And then in another comment, she said, I'm going to be silent because mine's been home since I was 18. Since she was 18, hers has been home. What? Oh, my God. That's what's up. So we know that niqab means observe the rules, observe the boundaries. The niqab states a whole lot of boundaries without having to say a word.
Don't try to shake my hand. Stuff like that. And these boundaries are her rights. We shouldn't be trying anyway. I get that. And the point I'm making is that the niqab, especially in a place like the West, says all of this loudly. That's what I'm getting at. But when she has a choice, the boundaries are lifted or brought down for this degenerate jail dude. And that's what I was trying to get at. I wish it wasn't like this, Bilal, but unfortunately it is. It's a war. Sorry, man. I got to get ready for class now, so I will catch you on in the next one. I'm not going to go through the whole outro because of time, but see y'all then. Take care.